2nd, 2024. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our first item is the minutes from September 4th. Did you have edits or changes on those, Mike?
I did not receive any edits.
Okay, and does anyone have any edits at this time?
Nope.
Then I move to approve the minutes of September 4th as written. A second, please.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our first business item is Nathaniel Boshans with an Eagle Scout project. Is he here? Apparently not.
I don't see him online. He was supposed to join virtually this evening.
Okay, well, maybe he's having trouble getting on. So we will go, okay, before I go any further, I am going to state that 12 Careswell Street and the town of Marshfield drainage swale maintenance are both being continued. So if anyone is on or here for those items, they will not be heard tonight. So we will go to the Dyke Road vegetation clearing. And is Mr. McCarthy here?
Right here.
Okay, would you mind coming up to the table?
Not at all.
And if you would state your name and address for the record, please?
Brian McCarthy, 32 Dundee Drive, Marshfield.
Okay. So, you have received a violation notice from the Conservation Commission and a no trespass letter from the town of Marshfield for cutting into the resource area along Dyke Road.
Okay, yes.
What tools did you use to do that clearing?
So I have Ryobi hedge trimmers, 24-inch blade. Gone through two of those, two sets. I have a weed whacker. And then I have a pair of loppers. That 1.5 to 2 inches is about the extent of what I can get with that. And shovel.
Because there were some trees taken down there. One is 9 inches in diameter, one is 6 inches in diameter.
That's not me. I haven't touched
It's a
a
fresh
chainsaw
cut.
in
It's a fresh
20 years
cut.
or more. I mean, I have enough problems hurting myself with the smaller hand tools. So,
Well, someone cut these trees very recently. You can see they are fresh. And, you know, I have two questions. What were these trees and where are they now?
I would like to know the same thing. The other thing I'd like, there's not much sawdust there. I don't know. No idea. I don't have tools capable of that. I remember a number of times people from the DAV would come over. They first, thank me for it and stuff like that and say, why don't you have a chainsaw? You can go through this area in no time, because it has literally taken me since mid to late April. That's when I started this. And I've been there every week since, until, Mike, when was that? 2-3 weeks ago? When
Yes,
you-
September 10th.
Okay, yeah.
So you've been you started in April.
Routinely, yes. I've been there for 5 months.
Okay. Did you know who owned the property when you started this, or did it
I
occur to you to
assumed it's the
wonder?
town owns it, which means all of us who pay taxes own it. Yes.
So you knew it was, it's obviously not your property, and you knew it was town property.
I'm aware, yes.
Okay. Did you consider that you need to talk to the Conservation Commission
No,
before
not at
anything
all.
like this is
I-
undertaken?
Not at all. See, I've worked with the trail ambassadors. I've been working with them for, I don't know, probably 3+ years now. We quite routinely go into areas that abut or very close to marshes, rivers, that's just how it is. So been doing that the last 3 years, and this year I said, well, why don't I work a little bit closer to home? So that's why I was there. So absolutely not aware. There are several, you guys have these blue signs throughout the Acres neighborhoods and stuff like that, that state that very clearly. Stay away, town of Marshfield land. I don't know the exact verbiage, but it's pretty means. Don't bother with it. So none of that there. And the other thing is, you could not walk down that sidewalk unless you walked to the street side of the sidewalk in single file. There were routinely women with their carriages with kids. Even the husband of one of this family used to walk it all the time, and they were shocked that they can do that once again. So I had absolutely zero idea. And again, in a 5-month time period to be doing that, and no one says anything but nice things. And like I have probably 300 signatures, and basically this has nothing more, and I know it's not a legal document. I just want to give you an idea. I have yet to find a single person who objected to this and hasn't said, thanks so much. It's wonderful. A number of times I had people, some of my friends here on Dyke Road, I think when I was working in the gazebo area, they approached me then because you couldn't get to the gazebo because it was surrounded by the briars. So that's where I started, and kind of worked around that. And I talked with Ned. I said, you know, I'm going to drag these things up close to the street as I can because I can't get rid of the refuse. I have no place to leave it. So I'm going to bring it up there. Hopefully it can get picked up. If not, well, I'll let it dry. And then the next pass through, I'll stomp it down and chop it up some more and eventually mulch it. So, no. Did I know I'm supposed to come talk to you? Absolutely not. And if that's the crime or whatever, the violation, I apologize. That's strictly ignorance of that. So.
Okay. Did any of the people who are across the street from here, did you talk to them about what you were doing?
All the time.
All the time.
Actually, one of the gentlemen had come up when I was in the gazebo area, and actually out in front of it, because I'd kind of done that, now I was trying to get the prickers off the street, or the sidewalk, and he offered to pay me money to come to his house, you know, do in front of his. He was further down. And I kind of laughed. I said, well, I can't. I'm retired, and that'd be too much like work. You know, I can't do that. I says, but, I says, if I live long enough, I plan to make my way down that way. So,
Okay.
and the other thing, just, it seems you have pictures, it's kind of nice. These are pictures of that area. As you can see, those are all dead. Everything in there is absolutely dead. And what that appeared to me, and I can't say, but I thought it was the power companies or whatever, some cable provider had thrown some stuff in between two of the poles. The entire length was absolutely dead. So it just dried, nothing there. So I couldn't understand, if I'm taking away dead wires, why would anyone have any issue with that? And clearly, no one that I know has. But now, Mike, he seemed to. And actually, when he did confront me on it, I was beat. I was exhausted. I just finished my work for the day, and I'd been standing there for a few minutes leaning on my shovel, just sweating and catching my breath. So when he approached me, you know, he started telling me, you can't do that, you need a permit, this and that. I said, you know, I said, wait, just calm down a minute. I said, let's talk about this. I said, you know, I've been doing this for years, and if what I'm doing is wrong, what we should think about doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, I said, we should get my boss, who's Ned, your management, or whomever you need, and let's talk about what we can or can't do going forward. I said, that way it helps us all. So he actually agreed to that.
Sorry to interrupt, but I thought that's the way it worked. I mean, Ned is frequently in here in front of us.
Well, that's not knowing that I had to come here ahead of time, but it's like, okay, now that I've cut down the dead, and there was some live stuff in there too. There was a lot of poison ivy and poison sumac. And those are the only things I removed. I didn't take any trees out, trust me, and I have no reason to lie. I mean, I don't care what's going to happen to me. It's like,
Well, to
But
Brett's
I
point,
ex-
yeah, Ned, who is on the recreation trails, is very, very cognizant of the need for permitting.
Well, you
and
know,
always
and I want to
comes
apologize right
us.
now, because I don't hate to drag Ned. Ned's been a very good friend of mine for many, many years. And we've worked together, and I don't mean to get him in trouble. And I had just kind of told him I was working in that area. I didn't get into detail. I know he wanted to make it down, but he's been kind of busy. So it didn't happen. But anyways, when Mike and I talked that day, I gave him all my contact information, and he agreed that let's have a walkthrough, talk about what we can and can't do. And it's like, good deal. You know, we walked away from each other, and here I am, 2 days later, cop shows up at the front door and says, Mr. McCarthy. I said, yeah. He says, I have this document that I need you to sign for, and I don't know what it is. And I kind of joked, said, well, I'm not sure I'm Mr. McCarthy anymore. And so we laughed, and we kind of had some fun with it, and then it dawned on me, I said, I'll bet you this has something to do with this. So, I mean, here I'm expecting a pat on the back, and it's like, you send the cops to my house.
So I think you know, the original intent here was to trim the sidewalk so it was passable.
Well, that's what
That's
started, but like I said, I trimmed it, and those prickers, the live ones, you got about a week. And then it's gonna grow up overhead and literally would hang over the sidewalk. So it just got to, and the more I cut into it, it was like, this is nothing but garbage. Let's get rid of it. And plus, and when you showed up, had pretty much done that area, and I got it so I could actually get through it. I mean, there's still a lot of, you know, right, as low as I could cut it, maybe this high, you're stomping through. And I was trying to root a lot of that stuff so it doesn't come back and let the natural stuff take over. So that's where I was. And now I'm just at a cease and desist. I mean, I would certainly love to find out what it is that I can do, because I see it happen all the time. Peter Igo, they trim that stuff all the time. They go into the ramp area by the river.
And that's permitted.
The harbor master,
That's permitted.
exactly. Well, that's great.
So you are unaware that there are state and local laws governing resource areas that require you to come for permitting?
You know, I guess it'd be blissfully ignorant for me to say I don't know. I have no idea. I assume there is. But like I say, when you look at those pictures, I'm taking out dead, invasive stuff and poison ivies. Me doing that, it never occurred to me, quite honest. I mean, I was just happy to go out and sweat for a couple hours, do that stuff, and then call it a week. Come back to
Because,
the...
you know, we have a process for this, and had you come to us before you began,
Yep.
we quite possibly could have issued a permit with an order of conditions
Sure.
for this work to be done. But that didn't happen. So I understand you're a very committed volunteer. I commend you for that.
Thank you.
This town has a lot of committed volunteers that do yeoman's duty for this town. 7 of them are sitting at this table.
Yes.
We
And,
were,
and thank you all. I think it's a great thing to do. My grandkids, when Ned asked me to do a trail marker for the Wharf Creek, this is my grandson. He's 24 now, and that's my youngest granddaughter. She was 9 at the time, she's 10 now. So what I did, I said, be happy to. Here's an opportunity to involve my grandkids on the importance of giving back. Because that's a huge post. It's like 8 by 8, and it's, God, what was it, 8, 10 feet tall? It's very big. And it's like, I'm not carrying that. My grandson, but he's big. He was happy to do it. So I routed that out, did that. My granddaughter, she did the artwork. She did all the painting. And I said, here's a lesson in your civic duties, your responsibility as a part of this community.
so, you know, back to my point that we have a lot of people here who work very hard, us included.
And thank you.
We do not appreciate being vilified in social media posts that draw the ire of people from all over town who think we are the bad guys.
And I understand that, and I had no intention of doing any of that until, my expectation was to meet with you folks and do the walkthrough. That's what I understood. What happened, the police show up, which I think is a colossal waste of our first responders' time. Then I get a registered mail my wife had to sign for. Then I get another regular mail, and it's like, what are we conserving here? And then I know when Mike had talked with Ned, he was talking fines were going to be levied against me. And it's like, for God's sakes, I'm sitting here trying to do something good for the community, a service. And I'm getting raked over the coals. So, yes,
So
I feel
here's
like...
what has to happen.
I'm sorry?
Here's what has to happen. You violated the Wetlands Protection Act, and you did it on town-owned property.
Okay.
That area requires restoration. Now,
How does
because
one
the
restore the
town,
dead plants?
the town is, we don't operate in a vacuum here. The DEP, we are also the town is accountable to the DEP. That needs restoration. Do you think the taxpayers of this town should have to pay for that restoration?
What is it? How do you restore a dead plant?
You get wetland scientists and you restore the area. And I have a couple of quotes on what that is going to cost. And one, which is simply delineating the wetland and is not fully doing the planting and everything, that is $3,100. A complete restoration is about $5,900. So who's going to be responsible for this? You are in violation of the Wetlands Protection Act. It's a law.
If the cease and desist order is lifted, my intent is to get rid of the root systems from these invasive briars that virtually took over everything.
What is
And-
your qualification for invasives management?
I'm sorry?
What are your qualifications for the management of invasive plants?
Well, I've been around for about 70-plus years. I read quite a bit. I see that the bamboo plants now, which are all over that entire area, are starting to take over heavily by Peter Igo. There's some along the beach area that have been ignored. These monster root systems that go along with it. I mean, I was pulling out root systems that travel the distance between two telephone poles.
There
And
are
like that- and they were
wetland
choking off
scientists
things.
who specialize in this work. Going in
Are you
there,
telling me that's the way that is being managed currently?
it wasn't being managed because it's
Neglected.
fine having been left alone. Clearing the sidewalk is one thing. You went 20 to 30 feet into the resource area.
Maybe.
Yes, definitely. We measured it.
Oh, I'm glad you did. I mean, but it would have been nice if there had been some maintenance happening sooner. When I was doing work at Tower Ave Park, Sean Patterson, who runs the DPW, he was talking to me, he says, well, hey, thanks for cleaning up the entrances and stuff like that here so people can get through and the prickers. I said, no problem, I'm glad to do it. And I said, actually, I do quite a bit of work down in Dyke Road. I've been down there for a while. I see you guys all the time. They come by, they will do the area from the marina up to the gazebo because the side is right there, the sidewalk is right there in the curb. Once you go beyond that, the sidewalk moves in several feet from the curb, and now that machine that they have that has, I don't know what you call it, but it has one mower that's down and another one that's up, and they kind of go in and they clear out. Well, it won't reach. They go by me routinely, they wave. So everyone that I've talked to, excuse me for not talking to you folks, I had no idea, was appreciative of it. So, whatever. Clearly I'm guilty. So I don't know what else to say other than well-intentioned. I think I've certainly done a service for the town. And honestly, I don't feel bad about it. That stuff had to go. It was a nightmare for everyone there. And clearly you don't live there because you would know that. how really nasty it is.
Well,
So-
you made a mistake, and
I'm
you made
sorry?
a serious mistake. You violated the Wetlands Protection Act, and you did it on property that is not yours, but is the town of Marshfield.
Yes, and I did it
The
for 5
town
months.
is now responsible to us and to the Department of Environmental Protection for correcting this.
One other thing, DEP trucks are down by the harbor masters area routinely. They also came by and drove by and watched me doing this, and normally when they did, I'd stop and just wave to them going by. They wave right back. Clearly on their trucks, DEP.
Well,
So,
I
I
don't know
mean-
who they are and what they're doing, but I imagine they're not responsible for driving around looking for,
Mass DEP?
well, we're your first line of,
I understand that, but you're talking about DEP, and what I'm trying to say is, well, DEP has seen me doing it for quite some time, and they have no objections to it.
no.
But they
That's not
didn't
true.
say a word to me.
Well, a guy in a truck might not have said anything to you, but believe me, Mike,
There are many different divisions in the DEP. There's a hazmat division, for example, clean air, clean water, wetlands protection is.
And you know what? I'm just me. I'm here, what I am is a 73-year-old vet who's just retired and trying to give something back to the community. So, pardon my horrendous mistake of this terrible damage to the wetlands, but I'm sorry for that. I don't feel bad about having done it. I'm glad my kids and my family have seen it. I'm glad I have 300 people that support all this. And again, I know it's not a legal document, and I just want to keep myself because I find it's heartwarming, the community that I live in, that people care. They truly do.
well, what we see on social media about us is far from heartwarming.
Well, I thought I was treated very disgracefully by your department. Particularly you, Mike, when you decided to send the police to my house.
Mike did not send the,
It was up to
excuse
you.
me,
It was
excuse
on
me.
you to call me and say, listen,
Mike
Brian.
did not send the police to your house. Your order of trespass was delivered by the police department, and
Yes.
that is not an uncommon delivery
we
system
parted,
for
we
a
agreed-
violation of that type.
The agreement was to have another discussion of what we can and can't do. What happened after that discussion was completely out of character, and I just said, you gotta be kidding me.
I'd like to respond to that.
Please.
So I will say the town administrator's office issued a notice of trespass that was delivered by the police department. That was not through the conservation department. We did discuss having a meeting with yourself, Ned, the chair of our committee, and myself at one point. When I started researching this property, noticed that over 100 feet in length and up to 34-ish feet off of the side of the sidewalk there were cleared. It became
That would be the very deepest extreme, and not much of it is like that. So please, kind of just keep that in mind. When you say 34 feet, say one tiny area stuck out 30 feet, and the rest is probably maybe 10, 15 feet
about
tops.
this whole area here is about 30
But you
feet
know what,
in
that's
off.
irrelevant. I'm guilty. You've got me. But what my point being, when you look somebody in the
Excuse
eye,
me,
here's
I
my course of
require
action. It's
order
up to you to
here.
say,
No
change.
comments from the audience at this time. I am going to invite Attorney Galvin to speak. If you have comments.
So the commission is faced with a situation where the gentleman has violated both the Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Protection Bylaw and regulations. And the commission did what it is.
So could you just speak up? I'm really deaf, so it's hard for me to hear.
So my name is Attorney Robert Galvin. I'm the town's attorney. Okay? So it appears that Mr. McCarthy doesn't dispute that he violated the Wetlands Protection Act and regulations or the local Wetlands Protection Bylaw and regulations by his conduct in cutting vegetation without either a negative determination of applicability or an order of conditions issued by the commission. And The commission has a long history of approving some vista pruning and invasive species removal through its permitting process, and I haven't heard any evidence that that was done. I think the commission is correct. It's a significant and serious matter. I don't think Mr. McCarthy did this maliciously. It sounds like he did it not
You did not do it maliciously.
I didn't say, I said I don't think he did it maliciously, but it appears that he has done it in ignorance of the laws. It sounds as if he doesn't have a clear understanding of what is a resource area, which is not just the area where the water is or where the marsh is. It's actually in Marshfield another 100 feet further away from that, which would include this entire area. And it sounds as if this activity has gone on for a very significant period of time, and it sounds as if the commission is in receipt of at least 2 estimates that require or would indicate that this is an expensive remedy that needs to be fixed, somewhere between $3,100 and $5,900. Just so the commission is aware, when someone takes matters into their own hands and violates the State Wetlands Protection Act, you can be subject to a $25,000 fine, and that's irrespective of the cost to restore the area. And our bylaws also carry fines, and to my knowledge, no one has fined Mr. McCarthy, although the commission has issued a cease and desist, which is the ordinary process when someone does work that's not authorized, and the town has issued a no trespass order so that Mr. McCarthy didn't continue in this area and proceed to continue to cut. It was intended, to my knowledge and the way I understand it, to prevent him from coming back onto the property and making matters worse or different or things of that nature. I don't know what his experience or qualifications are, but I think the commission could hear from Ned Bangs if there's any concern that this was something that was authorized by the Recreational Trails Committee. I tend to doubt that it would be, but the Recreational Trails Committee doesn't typically deal with sidewalk clearing, and certainly no one would probably wouldn't even be here if this was clearing things off the sidewalk. I'm sure the Department of Public Works does that on a regular basis within their means and within their ability to do it. The issue is the additional 25 to 30 feet that appears to be cut in that area and further down the way. So I think the commission now may want to take some public comment if you want to hear it. I don't doubt that Mr. McCarthy has some support for what he did, and that's because he is a decent fellow that has volunteered, and it sounds like he's got a praiseworthy past. But the activities that occurred here are clear violations of the act and the local bylaw, and you need to impose a remedy. And it would seem to me that the commission would have the discretion to request Mr. McCarthy fund that restoration cost. And if he chooses not to, we'll have to deal with it in another way. But the commission should determine what the remedy would be, who should perform the work. I'm not certain that Mr. McCarthy's the right person to restore that area, even if he has some experience, because the commission, as you've indicated, usually obtains someone who's a wetland scientist to perform the work or supervise the work, and that's been your normal process when there's been prior wetlands violations. I think coming out of the meeting tonight, it would be nice to have an understanding that no further work is going to occur in this nature, and all the people that he knows now understand that this is work that is not permitted without your Conservation Commission approval. And I think that would probably be a suitable result. But, I think if there are other questions to ask of Mr. McCarthy, it's the appropriate time. I was alerted to some of the social media comment, and it did seem to be critical of the commission, and the commission has done absolutely nothing wrong other than to say, we have rules and you didn't follow them. Please stop until we determine what happened. And for that, the commission and you all as volunteers should not be subject to any type of ridicule. Mr. McCarthy may have done some things that you would ordinarily have permitted. And if he had obtained the permits in approvals, I think we'd all be sitting here giving him some accolades instead of the criticism that he's received so far. But people have to understand we have a set of rules that were voted in place by all of the residents of the town at town meeting, and it required permits and approvals for this, and this is not okay.
Thank you. This is a business session. I'm not required to take public comment, but I know a lot of you are here to support Mr. McCarthy. I will entertain very brief comments about this only. I don't want any what-about-isms in this part of town, that part of town. We are addressing this and this alone. So, and I would ask you to be very brief. We have a long agenda tonight and a long way to go. So I know you're all here to support Mr. McCarthy. If someone would like to speak briefly, now is the time to do so.
I'd like to say something. Should I sit here and do it?
You need to be by a mic, so if you would go over there, and if you will give us your name and address for the record.
Sure. Matthew Knowles. I live at 84 Dyke Road, in that area. I would just ask the board, this was obviously not done maliciously. It's a good man that was trying to better the area. As you can see, the support of the whole neighborhood. I've lived here since 1985, and a lot of people travel that because of the scenic, it's a scenic area and all that, so a lot of us pick up any trash that's left behind. It's certainly going to be a lot easier for us to do that now that this is cleared like this. But I would just ask that he is not fined and all that. If we go back, a group of people go back or whatever at this to try to almost continue what Mr. McCarthy did, that we would do it under a permit, and just that he would be given some, forgiveness here, so there is no fine towards him, because I think he was trying to do the right thing, and we're very happy that it did happen, because it looks absolutely beautiful. I've heard so many comments from people that don't live in the area that walk by going, this is unbelievable, you can see the harbor and whatnot, so that's about all I have to say.
Thank you.
My name is John Morrow. We own 92 Dyke Road. When I saw Mr. McCarthy out doing what he was doing, I was overjoyed. A year before, we tried to find out who to call. I called 3 town departments. The only thing they would tell me, they never called back. I called the harbor master, I called DPW, and I called the highway. Never got a call back. I didn't know what to do. So when I saw Mr. McCarthy doing what he was doing, improving the area for everybody, and he's doing it on his own time, at his own expense, I thought it was unbelievable. That's the way people used to do things in this country. Thank you.
Thank you.
You did a wonderful job. I appreciate it. My name is Mary Ann Hebert. I'm at 88 Dyke Road. I've lived on that street since 1978. And we used to have a beautiful view, beautiful view. I went over there one time trying to cut down some poison ivy because I am very allergic to it. And my son we used to walk along and it would hit us in the ankles. And I had to stop doing it because I got poison ivy all over me, so I never did it again. John was saying, I also called different departments and I asked, who can please take this down? You got to talk to the trees and cemeteries, I think was the answer that I got. I've left messages, no callbacks. I understand everybody's busy. You mentioned volunteering. I have volunteered for every single sport in this town. I was on the rec commission for 10 years. I also was on the dog park. So it's nice to see people. I would have gone out there and helped him if I didn't get poison ivy. Our view has been gone for a very long time. And I pay the same taxes as my mother in Green Harbor. And when I questioned that at the town hall one time, I was told, yes, because you got a view. Didn't have a view anymore. It's been so overgrown. And I wouldn't even sit out on my front porch now, then. Now, since this is all gone, I've been out there almost every single night, sitting there, watching, reading my book, whatever, because there's a view. And we appreciate everything he did. I didn't know you had to have a permit either. If we had asked for a permit, would you have let us cut what he cut?
Well,
You know, but-
as Attorney Galvin pointed out, we do permit vista pruning to maintain views.
Yeah, oh,
So that had
yeah.
anyone come before us, before Mr. McCarthy started, we would have found a pathway
Yeah.
to do that.
And we have asked for help. Who do we go to? Who do we ask? No calls. No calls back. And and I just wanted to say also, he did not cut all that down. When the harbor master did his project, I don't know if he had a permit or not, he cut a lot of that down. And it was beautiful. And I assumed it was okay for him to do. And I went and I said to him, that looks beautiful. I really appreciate what you're doing. He says, yep, we're gonna really try to keep it up. He never did again, which is, whatever the reason. But I just wanted to say that we have lost our view. And now we have it back. And unfortunately, he didn't know. He made a mistake, and all of us would have gone over there. I've dumped my grass over there. I don't know if you can do that or not, but I
No, you
dumped.
can't.
Okay, well, I won't do it
No, you
anymore.
Don't
No, I
tell
don't,
us
I
that.
don't know that. See, I don't know.
No.
But that's why there are flowers over there, because I have dumped my bulbs over there, but, they've come up. People love it. Anyways, I'm glad that he maintained it, and hopefully it can be, and I hope you don't go back in there and restore those invasive plants.
Well, we're not going to restore invasives.
Yeah, because
That-
the
that
poison
they would be
ivy
managed.
is unbelievable over there, and I am very allergic, I found out. So people can't even walk the sidewalk unless we do what we do. There's a man, I don't know who he is, but there's a man that comes by all the time in the summer. I asked him one time, why is he doing it? He mows the grass that's up, butts up to it or whatever, and then, makes it look really, really nice. And he wanted it to be really nice so people would notice and appreciate Peter Eigel Park and all the tennis. So he did that for, I don't know if he asked permission to do that, if that's okay, but he did it all the time. I went over there a few times. Matt's gone over there a few times mowing that grass because the town doesn't take care of it. And if we're paying for a view, we're not getting our money's worth because it's not being. But I hope you don't put the stuff back there that is invasive because and I don't think.
We're not
you-
putting anything invasive.
I don't think you need to pay anybody to restore anything. That stuff's gonna grow back on its own. Why waste the town's money? Why make him pay? It's gonna grow back. Since '78, I've been there. Believe me, it's grown back.
Thank you.
So hopefully you do the right thing
You wanna say anything,
with
Ned?
him.
Well, let me have Ned, then I'll take you, then we're going to end the comment.
So, thank you. Ned Bangs, and the chairperson of the Recreation Trails Committee, and we have a group of 50-plus volunteers that are our trail ambassadors, and we go out at a different location every week. So we spent early in the spring at the entrance to the Wharf Creek Trail, which is almost directly opposite from the Green Harbor Yacht Club. So prior to us being there, you couldn't get into that trail head. So briars, thorns, whatever brush that was there. So we had our crew cut that open because after the nice marker that was there, it's a beautiful walk, short walk, but very nice. But people didn't have access to it. And then we branched out along the guardrail on the same side as the entrance because the briars were over the guardrail, and you couldn't walk on that side of the road because of that. And we can, and then the gazebo was the same thing. Before Brian asked if he could cut around there, you couldn't get into to the gazebo and sit on the benches and enjoy a view because there were briars all around that. So, misunderstanding with myself and Brian. I thought that he was on the sidewalk, and we know that on that cement pathway that the brush has grown over there, and so he was trying to maintain it, like the other gentleman that's been and I've been down there several times, and I don't know who he is, but the area looks, it's definitely has been mowed and looks good. And there was another person down there that I don't know the name that was cleaning out a storm drain that was there. So a lot of people have taken that on their own initiative. And I can tell you from going to, and more details were in the letter that I dropped off with Mike this afternoon, kind of Brian's background and volunteering for the town and his grandkids and his kids. And what we've seen just recently for vandalism, that this gentleman's trying to do something good, didn't know everything. There was a miscommunication between he and I on what he was cutting. So I'm as much as fault on that. But if you look at it, yes.
So I just want to be clear. So Brian came to you and he either asked permission or told you what he was going to cut in this area?
So we were at the Wharf Creek Woodlands where we cut the entrance, and at the, it was, more had to be cut around there.
That's not this area.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm asking this just on this one. So Brian did come to you and tell you what he was going to do or ask permission for what
At Wharf Creek.
Okay, not here. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Right, so I had, it was a misunderstanding. I thought he was doing the sidewalk.
I had said Dyke Road to you, and I think that's where the miscue came, because I went from Wharf Creek, then you go up by Peter Igo, then across the street is the gazebo, and to me, it just seemed like, well, a natural extension of.
I'm just trying to, if it was a miscommunication.
Yeah.
Or if Brian thought he had communicated and was given an okay, and I don't know what the process is.
Right,
to give an
sure.
okay or not to give an okay. And how many other situations like this Brian might have done in the past. I'm just saying, if Brian felt he had gotten a blessing, gotten an okay to do this, I look at it in a completely different light.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the Trail Ambassador, it sounds like a very good program. I don't know what the process is that they use to get approval to do anything.
Sure.
And especially now, obviously you've probably done lots of projects. I don't know if you've gone out on your own in the past or you clear through you.
Part of it is I like the hard work. Ned picks where we're going, and then the group grew. I mean, we only had maybe a dozen could show up any given time, sometimes
Okay.
half of that, if we were getting into.
So I'm just trying to drill down on this one because I'm
Yeah, so-
walking away thinking it was a miscommunication.
Yeah, so we would go out with Bill Grafton, who was at the time the conservation administrator. He would come on several of the walks, as Mike has, and would talk about the trails and what to cut back. Basically, would do in the trails, it would be a 3-foot wide walkway, so you could have two people walking next to each other, and then about 6 feet down, so if any tall people are walking, they're not having brush go in their eyes, in their face. So that would be typical of the different trails we were doing. As we started to branch out, as we had more trails in town and more people asking, what about our trail? That was Wharf Creek was one of the ones that we picked. We went in, we had to basically cut our way in because all the briars and thorns that were there. And when and I had been by the gazebo and saw the same thing there, and Brian said, I'd like to cut that back so people can get in there and sit on the two benches that are there. That seemed like a natural part of what we were doing and allowing people access to do that. And off and on, we've met with Mike a couple times in the field with Liz on some new trails that we were looking at. And more recently, he was out at Union Street Woodlands with us talking about the footbridges and what we can do out there. So we're trying to engage a lot more.
with Mike.
With Mike and Liz, the staff in there, and we're doing more than we did before. So we have more questions to ask and trainings to look at, so we can be better stewards as what we're doing.
So Ned, could I ask you to make your volunteers aware
Yes.
of, well, this, but also to exercise caution before anyone takes it upon themselves to do cutting and, yeah, I mean, you know what people can and cannot do because you come to us. So maybe you can emphasize that to your group.
Yeah, I can certainly do a better job to get the word out on what's permissible, what's not. And Mike and I, we probably meet once a week chatting about different trails, what we're doing. And actually next week he's going to come out. We have certain areas that we're looking at for some benches that people want to donate. So we want to make sure that they go we have ideas we would like to put them, but we want to make sure that it's not violating any issues that Mike may know. Mike certainly knows a whole lot more than I do, and Liz knows a whole lot more than I do. But we're looking at them as the encyclopedias to help train us, so
And I would
we can do
encourage
better.
everyone in this room, I know you've called various town departments, nobody gets back to you. Put Conservation Commission on your list of people to call. Because in this case, we're the ones who needed the call. And, not the highways, not DPW, not trees and cemeteries. And I will promise you, you will get a response from Conservation.
I can say one of the things that's hurt and makes me feel sad is that, so Brian and these other people, trying to do the good thing and supporting some efforts to make improvements, to make Marshfield a better place to live, work, to recreation at. And in the last 2 weeks, the vandalism and graffiti that were found at the Jose Carrera Woodlands, illegal dumping there, at Couch Beach, which, a lot of us know it's a beautiful spot. People do yoga there, they walk there, they camp out there. Well, 2 weeks ago, we went in there after the police noticed a bunch of kids that were coming out of the cemetery. And the DPW, it was such a mess, the DPW was called in on a Sunday with one truck and 2 men to pick up a mess. We came there Monday and Tuesday, back Tuesday, and there was graffiti on the trees. There were bottles and cans thrown around. The porta-john was tipped over. There were kids. We know there were kids because there were backpacks that had the names on them, and they had their homework that they didn't do, and the T-shirt said Norwell. So we went through, and when the trail ambassadors got there, the campsite where the fire pit is, that was going. I'm not saying it was those kids.
I'm going to stop you, Ned, only because we're off topic.
Sure.
And we still have to wrap this up.
Yeah. So that's what we've been dealing with as well. That makes the good efforts that people do. It hurts. You can't go forward because you have to put out these fires, so to speak.
Okay.
So that's
Thank
what
you.
I have.
I'd like this lady to have an opportunity, and could you please be,
I'll be very brief.
thank you.
I hope. Mary Sullivan, 96 Dyke Road, and I'm that greenhouse right there, the last one you can see, so I'm right in the thick of things. Okay, I walk my dog every morning down and up the harbor walk to the harbor park, which is beautifully maintained. And I was getting a lot of poison ivy, and I'm saying, where the hell am I getting it? Because I don't go in the woods because I'm allergic to it. And come to find out, when the dog walks along the edge, I was getting it there and petting the dog. But off of that, when the town was trying to appropriate the money to build the harbor walk, we were at a lot of town meetings, and they brought all these projects up, and they assured us that if it passed, they would maintain it. Okay, and I've lived in that house 44 years, and I can assure you, very few times that walk has been maintained. And the stuff just starts here, and it just grows over and comes out. So they're not maintaining it. And like I say, I've been there 44 years. So I think what Brian did was fabulous. If I could have gone out there to help him, I would have. But I agree with the one statement Mary Ann made. That stuff is going to grow back. You cannot kill it. So I don't see why you have to, I mean, if we could get in there and just pull whatever is laying on the top, all that stuff is going to grow back. Because, like I said, I've seen it at different lengths, and a few times the town has done some cutting, it's grown right back. So I would ask you to have, a little compassion to him, because he didn't know, and I wouldn't know to get a permit. So hopefully in the future, we can work together.
Now everyone knows.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Hi,
Mr. Pachevich?
Joe
Very
Pace-
brief, please.
yes, Joe Pasevich, Wilson Road. I wonder, we might be a little bit hasty about characterizing this as some kind of environmental disaster. I wonder if the town administrator has been out there and is familiar with the type of vegetation that's growing there that was impacted. And if it's, is it something that's not going to grow back? Is it something that needs to be like restored in terms of plantings and that kind of stuff? I don't know if you can make that determination. I agree with the sentiment that we really should give it time to grow back and see what happens. I don't know if there's been an actual assessment out there as to what was removed, what was cut, in terms of what species of plants.
I don't know what was cut because it's been cut and now
Yeah.
I can't
On the
tell.
pictures there that shows that specific area.
So but there are adjacent, areas that are abutting, or adjacent to that area, that are contiguous to that area, would probably give you an idea of what's been growing there. And that stuff's pretty resilient, as I'm sure the administrator and you all know. And the other thing, too, I didn't hear Mr. McCarthy admit to cutting anything large. And apparently, the trees that you showed stumps of looked like they were cut with a chainsaw to get that close to the ground and that clean of a cut. I don't think Mr. McCarthy is admitting to that. And also, from my travels in that area, there is a lot of larger growth that has been cut in the past. So somebody else has been in there cutting and cutting and cutting. And I wouldn't lay all the blame on Mr. McCarthy. And it should be a teaching moment. Just as the town dropped the ball on maintenance of playgrounds, the town's got to pick up the ball on maintaining a safe passageway along these sidewalks.
I
I'm
agree.
severely allergic to poison ivy. So, for all those reasons, I'd suggest that you just continue this case. And there's other damage in town. I know you don't want to use the comparison thing, but recently, Eversource, somebody used a large amount of herbicide on Plymouth Ave, and I've reported that. So there's a lot of this going on, and everybody should pay attention. And also, by the way, but I know where you're coming from, 100%, absolutely. And I've been familiar with a couple of cases in Marshfield regarding vista issues. They wanted to clear a vista down by on Ocean Street, down by the package store there. I can't think of the name of it. And, that was not allowed to go through. And then there was an issue of around 505 South River. I think maybe that was just when Mike was coming on board a few years ago. 505 South River, the person across the street was running across the street with a chainsaw. But luckily, again, speaking of resilience, that area has come back. So, and I'm not in favor of creating vistas just off the record, just as an aside. But I don't think Mr. McCarthy's responsible for all the heavy cutting that's been going on over there over time. If I was you, I'd just continue this or give him a $1 fine and let it go. Thanks.
Thank you. So, where we are is, we have a notice of violation, we have damage done to a resource area, and there has to be some correction. I told you what the quotes are from two different wetland scientists. The ideal thing would be to get a professional in there who can eradicate the poison ivy and whatever other invasives are there and replace it with proper native plantings that would normally grow there. That's going to cost money. Would all of your supporters be willing to chip in on that?
I wouldn't ask him to.
Okay,
And when you look at that area there, see how it's all brown? That's the area, that entire area between that pole and the one prior to it, on the pictures I gave you, had been doused with chemicals by one of the power line or people that use the poles, cable companies. It was all dead. So, I don't know, I'm sorry for not getting permission. I don't feel I've done anything wrong. Taking out dead plants, what do you want to, how do you restore a dead plant? And they were invasive. They're those briars that everyone hates. So what I would be happy to do, and what I hope to do going forward, is to take away this cease and desist, because there's stuff that grows constantly in there. It's already starting to green up. You can see where the green is at the base of that picture. A lot of that was gone too, and that's how quickly it grows back. So I'd like to root the bad stuff, and if we want to bring in, Mike, if you want to come, that's what I wanted to do anyways. What can we do and what can't we do? So take away those roots of the briars and stuff, and then look what happened. I let all of that, there's a lot of these small bushes that right at the edge that it drops off. I suspect those are trying to climb up in, but they couldn't before because it was taken over by the briars. And I'm not talking about a bush. I'm talking you have to physically cut out a square chunk of it, and it's like a block, and you take it out. That's how thick those briars were. Because I would spend anywhere between 2 and 4 hours. I might only get a couple of feet done. And that was every week. So,
okay, I'm gonna ask the commission, does anyone have, any brilliant, elegant, solution ideas here?
I'm not a wetland scientist. I'm not an expert on wetlands. I am very familiar with the Wetlands Protection Act and the state wetland protection regulations and the local bylaw and local regulations. If this isn't managed properly, invasive species will take over that area instead of the species that should be regrowing in that area. So I would recommend that the commission use a wetlands professional to have that area restored and not place the burden on Mr. McCarthy or anybody else that doesn't have that expertise to restore that area. It's up to the commission whether you ask Mr. McCarthy to pay for it or not. If he chooses to pay for it, great. If he chooses not to pay for it, he can let us know, and we'll take matters from there. The reality is no one is accusing of being malicious or a bad person. He did violate the law here. I don't know whether he cut the trees down. I heard him say that Eversource has done something here. Would love to have that information too. If he has any more information about anybody else that cut these areas, having that information would allow us to address it with Eversource, because Eversource doesn't have carte blanche either to cut 30 feet into a wetlands area. And the other issue you have there is you have a lot of material that's been cut that is laying there that's going to work its way into the marsh area, and that has to be addressed as well. So my recommendation is that the commission engage its own consultant and have that area professionally restored or restored by a wetland scientist that has that ability, and ask Mr. McCarthy to pay for that cost. And if he chooses not to, we'll handle it from there.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I could only hear parts of that. But again, I still don't understand. You say it needs to be restored, it's been damaged. When all I took out is the invasive species that you said yourself, you don't want that to take over.
Well, exactly.
So if it's there and it's blocking healthy growth, native growth, how could it ever get normalized? It'd always be trash, and it'd be the briars and the prickers and the poisons. So I really don't understand why, you're saying, well, I should pay for all this, because it has to be restored. It was garbage to start with.
Yeah, but you opened Pandora's box when you cut it down.
I'm sorry?
You opened Pandora's box when you cut it down. Now we have to
My
try to
apologies.
prevent it from becoming what a mess it was.
And I'd like to play a role in that. I'd like to work at it. But, I mean, Mike, if you're the expert, let's go do what we talked about doing on the 10th, is let's figure it out. Because I would love to see something grow back there that's not these briars and this stuff that ruined it in the first place.
So we have a quote from ECR Consulting and Restoration of $3,100. That does not include the actual replanting of the site. Is that correct, Mike?
That's correct.
John Zimmer's higher quote includes everything. He will,
Yes, minus invasive management.
Okay.
That one is not included in the scope of work. That would likely cost more money.
so what if we engaged Brad Holmes of ECR to do his work for $3,100? And perhaps with his guidance, the Recreational Trails Committee could assist in removal of invasives, planting of appropriate material.
I've got a suggestion.
Good, thank you.
I know of a few environmental specialists that have done some help with Peter Igo Park in that area. I know that there's people that have helped with Peter Igo Park that are environmental professionals, and we may be able to get some assistance and some advice there, and then do the same thing. Recreational Trails could pick it up and manage the invasives. I think the thing we have to, I feel I understand that this was well-intentions gone wrong. That's what I hear. And, but I would like to point out that by doing all that clearing, you've opened it up, as Attorney Galvin mentioned, you know, we talked about the knotweed, how that's going crazy all over town. That's that bamboo you talked about, that's Japanese knotweed. To open up an area like this, that's just, that's welcoming that stuff to come in. And also, you know, the fact that people saw you do a clearing there, that may have led to somebody going in and cutting the trees, if it wasn't Eversource. Eversource should have a plan. They should notify us if they're cutting trees. But it's still possible it was them, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
But I think Mr. Pesovich's point that it looks like a chainsaw cut, I would agree with that also. And, you know, there were some substantial trees. It's a shame we lost them. Because to have a root system in there is a good thing
Right.
for erosion, and which is the other thing about cutting all that back. You know, if we have a big storm in the near future, you know, it's open to erosion now. So like I say, I understand it was good intentions, but I think this ought to be a learning experience for everybody. And I think I know who we can approach as far as starting to put a plan together. If that won't work, you know, going back to Brad Holmes, I think that's also good.
So that's
Okay.
in lieu of, in place of the getting.
Right, try to get some free input.
I could assist with developing that plan
Thank you.
as a volunteer.
I see a hand back here.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give you 1 minute.
Thank you. My name is Madeline Daly Hauser of 5 MacArthur Lane, Marshfield. I just want to say, if there's going to be fees involved, I'm happy to help Mr. McCarthy set up a GoFundMe. I just will make you aware that will be going on Facebook, and it will be going through social media. So if there are going to be fees charged to Mr. McCarthy, I will be stepping in to organize that GoFundMe. So I just want to make that clear. It's not to vilify anyone. It's just to make people aware and to assist this man that came out to do a good deed. He's a veteran and he's a senior citizen, and I'm kind of appalled at the way it went down. I think it should have been handled a little differently.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stop comment here because we are an hour into this, more than an hour into this, and we have a lot of business tonight. I think we will start with Bert's suggestion to reach out to some of the people who worked on Peter I Go and see if we can get their assistance. And Corey has graciously offered to help. If for some reason that does not work and we need to levy a cost here, that will be Plan B. But everybody agree that
I agree, yep.
we'll start with Plan A? And we will keep you informed.
Thank you. I would
And
like to participate too, because like I say, I'm not the scientist expert. My plan was to get rid of that stuff that's prevent everything else natural from growing and root it and allow the natural stuff to take over.
yeah,
Now,
unfortunately, the natural stuff isn't gonna take
of course,
over
being
now.
as ignorant as I am, that
Yeah.
was, I guess,
That's the
doesn't work.
problem.
But whoever it needs to be, I would like to play a role in it. I have time. I'm happy
Okay,
to do
I,
so.
I think we have a resolution for now that
Very
we
well.
will, and if that is not gonna work, we will revisit,
Very well.
okay? Thank you all for coming out and for your support of Mr. McCarthy.
My friend, thank you very much, all of you.
And by the way, this commission does permit vista pruning. So if,
I'm
you-
happy to
if
apply.
people lose their views, come and talk to us. There is a path there to remedying that.
Michael, and I'll be talking to you, I would assume, and I apologize, I'll probably come on kind of strong, but.
It's okay. Understandable. Emotions are high.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Okay.
The system prevents, it keeps everything stable, so that when you have flood.
All right, now we have Ned back on recreational
still
trails
preventing
and the
erosion.
Union Street bog bridges.
Yeah. I don't think that was necessarily, but it's more of a disturbance that occurred.
Okay, we got it. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye. So, good to be back, and different topic, same theme. This time we had, so we're talking about the Union Street woodlands up off of Union Street. There was Mike has some great pictures of the footbridge that is, past its age. It's more than a senior citizen. It's gone. It's a long footbridge. We spent some time there with Mike, Jeff Wilson, who's part of the Trails Committee and member New England Mountain Bike Association. Tom Grellin, he's the high school building construction teacher who's built the kiosks for us and other projects. And so Tom was out there. This project will be two pieces to it. One will be a bench, not a footbench. A bench that will be installed. Mike looked at one area and will confirm the exact location prior to any installation. So we met on that, and then the footbridge is about 100 linear feet, and Tom is getting me a quote on the materials to replace it because it's past being repaired. And it's somewhat of a danger, as you can see there. A lot of the bottom rails have rotted out. And we tried a year ago to put some boards in there, and it's like going through sawdust. They can't be done. So under, Mike toured it, Tom was there, Jeff was there. It'll be a learning experience for the high school students that are in his class. Tom's class, and they come out in the field a couple times a week for a couple hours at a time. So it's not something that, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over many nights before it's finished. But the product is good. We've been pleased with the kiosks, and look forward to the footbridges and benches.
I think that's great. I walk in there and it gets treacherous and, yeah.
It's a mess.
It's a liability to have those bad. So I'm perfectly happy with this. I I don't think anybody has anything.
Would it just be replaced like in kind, the same kind of
S-
structure?
Same concept,
Yeah.
but all new material. And there's, I think, eight sections, and each section's a little bit different in the length because there were rocks and streams and whatever there. So, and they'll all be 3 feet wide, which is what it is right now. So it's more like a one and done. Take one out, put the other one in, same configuration.
Now, this is the walk down to the dock,
So this is the walk
on
at
the little property? Or-
no, this is at Union Street Woodlands, just past the Corn Hill.
Corn Hill, okay.
Yep, and it's on the right-hand side. The trail's about 3/4 of a mile, and it enters the New England Foundation Forestry. They own the rest of it. And so it's for Marshfield on our property. It's very short, but very pretty walk. And tons of people use it every time we're out there. And during Christmas time, and when you walk down one of the trails, you'll see they use it as a fundraiser. You'll see all these different ornaments. So if you want that, and there's when I first saw it, it's like, what the heck are people doing here? There's something else for us to do, clean up. And at the end of the trail, it's kind of like, no, Ned, this is what you need to look at. And it's a fundraiser for several different charities. And in the letter or that's posted there, it says basically, we'll be back after Christmas to take everything down. And so I wrote it down. I went back there that day. They said it would be down. Everything was gone. You never would have known it was there. And I don't know who does it or how long they've been doing it, but there are 3 or 4 organizations that benefit from it. And it seems people come there. It's like going to Edaville Railroad to see the train and the lights. Here it is, right in Marshfield. You don't have to go anywhere. So that's what we have for Union Street Woodlands.
I think that's great. I mean, go for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have the Eagle Scout project? Is he on, or?
Is Nathaniel Boshans on this evening? I don't see him on here.
Okay. Then next up is Mr. Oliveri and Abbey Street. Hello. Yep.
Last month, and
Could you move that microphone over to your seat? Thank you.
this better.
It's not for me, it's for the recording.
I was approved for a shed. Interested in. I have a 5,000 square foot lot. I'm going to put it in the rear corner, and I was in compliance with the building department, and I find that from the last meeting that I was approved by conservation with some special requirements, and one of the, which I have no problem with all except one. And the one requirement, I'll put some, the Reed's Ferry Company puts the shed on concrete blocks. And they recommend 3/4 inch crushed stone on a reasonably level lot. So that's what I plan on doing. So I'll have the 3/4 inch crushed stone put in place, I believe, I think 2 inches. I'll make sure of that. And you folks would like some kind of ground anchoring, I'll go with sonotubes.
Have you spoken to the building commissioner? Do you have a building permit?
I have a building permit, yes.
Because I think our conditions say, Mike, 2 feet off.
Yes, it does indicate 2 feet off of the ground, as this is a barrier beach coastal dune. And I will remind the commission that the lawn here that you see photographed was installed about 2 years ago. Before that, it was a natural barrier beach type environment.
So the building commissioner says the shed needs to be on footings with a minimum of 2 flood openings.
Yes,
Did he discuss that with you?
no. That-
Okay.
I'm aware that it needs to be on footings. We will have more than 2 flood openings. It's not going to be closed underneath, it's going to be fully opened underneath. So, if that's what you're referring to.
But in Barrier Beach Coastal Dune, we require a 2-foot,
A 2-foot clearance between the grade and the lowest horizontal member of the structure. So 2 feet of clearance essentially between the lawn and the actual shed.
so we don't have any wiggle room on that. It's,
In the past, the commission has voted to grant projects with a lower clearance, such as decks in the numbered streets, such as 9th Road, Foster Ave, that area where there's a seawall. Where the Barrier Beach, there's an argument that wouldn't necessarily be fully functioning.
commissioners, any thoughts?
That's the issue that I'm concerned about, is that I will comply with whatever, with any town regulation. I have no problem with that. The 2 feet off the ground, I spoke to a few people about that, including persons here in this commission. At the level that I am, we have never had water reach the level of our grass, of our surface. Now, I understand also there's a concern about movement of solid earth or sand in that area. That probably wouldn't be an issue either, because there is enough barrier. There are houses and fences and sheds that would obstruct any serious ground movement. The worst we get, I've lived there 30 years, the worst we get is at the ends of the street, we will get sand after a storm coming from either the marsh or the beach. And it goes up about 100 feet on either side at worst case. It never reaches, I'm 2 streets in from Winslow, and so, Standish. And so, we have never had any ground movement in my area. As of the last meeting, I did unknowingly have 2 people, according to my my landscaper, I said I'd like to get some grass to grow, because nothing grows, and except for seagrass, which I don't mind, but I wanted to grow some grass. So he said we recommended taking 2 inches of sand off, which we donated to the sand restoration at the parking lot. He put 1.5 inches to 2 inches of dirt, and the grass started to grow, but of course this year it all died. So in your recommendation from last month's meeting was to leave it alone, which we will.
Give up on that one.
The 2 feet clearance would prevent me from having a shed, because I'm not going to put a shed 2 feet off the ground. I don't see any functional reason, maybe because I'm not an engineer. Now, you folks may well know good, compelling reasons why I should, but everything I've seen, there's sheds all around me, and some of them are right on the ground. Some of them have clearance of a couple of inches. I plan on being in compliance with 6 inches of clearance between the crushed stone and the bottom of the floor of the shed. And that seemed to me to be, from what I've read about the wetlands and about construction on a barrier beach, that would be fair. And so that's what I'm requesting you folks to.
What are the dimensions of the shed?
I have 2, I originally wanted 8 by 12, which would require a permit. I am since considering reducing the size to 6 by 10. That wouldn't require a permit, but I would still comply with the setbacks.
And this is an AO flood zone?
I believe it's VA.
It's an upland portion. It's
Oh,
between
okay.
the AO and the AE flood zone. In fact, the building commissioner and floodplain coordinator said he recommends the installation of the minimum of 2 flood vents, but does not require them necessarily.
It's not between the 2 flood zones?
Yeah,
I can pull it up on a map.
the shed falls in between the two
Okay.
flood zones, so it's not actually.
What do you mean the line goes through?
I think it. Or when I did this before, I think it comes like that.
Like the center of the lot's not in the flood zone.
Yeah.
Can you put the shed where it's like?
I don't think that's the reason though. I think it's because of the barrier beach.
So this is the lot here.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And then, as you can see, there's an AE flood zone to this side, and then a VE flood zone to the other. So this is in a highland portion, kind of in between the two.
And when you get to the shore there's no seawall, is there?
No.
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 Excuse me, when you need, what place?
I was just wondering if there is seawall out at the shoreline where you are.
There isn't. If you look, if you bring that up again, you'll see that the end of Abbey Street goes down to the ocean, of course. And there is no formal seawall, but, well, there is on one side, a neighbor has, to the south, has placed a concrete seawall. Most other neighbors have some form of at least 3-foot high crushed stone. I mean, a rock.
So if you're putting a shed on cinder block, what's the dimension of a cinder block?
By 16.
Like 8 3/4.
8 inches or something?
Yeah.
8 inches, yep.
You know,
It's more than half. Oh, I think so.
For a 6x10 shed, as a practical matter, I don't see an issue, but are we setting up a?
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, common sense would
For a
tell
fa-
you to,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. As a practical matter?
For a 6x10 shed, to have to elevate it 2 feet, I think is a lot, but I don't want to set a bad precedent that now we're gonna have to allow everybody to do it.
Right.
we don't,
Would-
nothing we do sets precedent,
Well,
technically.
well, I think isn't it usually a situation where each property has its own unique characteristics?
I think that
I mean, if you put it, just one thing, Sam.
Yeah.
The only other thought I have is you're gonna have to have stairs or a ramp to get up to it. So
that's
You definitely need a ramp.
that's what
yeah.
I was just gonna. I mean, a 2-foot shed. You couldn't even really make an ADA compliant ramp to get in there. I mean, the ramp would have to be 24 feet long.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like,
It would make it,
you'd be out to the street getting up onto a shed in the backyard.
it would be unusable. And actually, it wouldn't look that good either. Because,
No.
It'd be the only one in the town.
It's been built 2 feet off of
I just don't know what precedent prior sheds.
I can't recall running into this before.
If it's not land subject to coastal storm flowage, but it is barrier beach coastal dune, then the width of a cinder block should be sufficient to let
flow.
I mean,
sand
yeah.
move under.
Similar to like how we do fences in those
Yeah.
6 inches of clearance.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's,
Especially if it's only structure.
yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm
I mean, there's a
comfortable,
fence
I just,
directly in his backyard that's touching the ground.
yeah,
There's a lot of,
I mean, it's up to us whether we think it's a functioning,
functioning dune, and,
I'm sold.
okay,
All right.
okay.
Okay.
We're going to amend the special condition
Okay.
to allow Mr. Oliveri to have the shed on cinder blocks with a gravel.
Okay. There will be the gravel, there will, and cinder blocks are, and standard cinder blocks as, so it's back to exactly what the, it reads very, as.
Suggest it.
I appreciate your consideration, thank you.
And
very
then
much.
you're gonna be open underneath, right? So it's just gonna be cinder blocks and open?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
It will be completely open.
So we don't need to deal with flood vents or
I'm not doing
anything?
any kind of
Doesn't-
skirting or anything like
Yeah, you're
that
right.
underneath.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
see Mike, and, actually, we'll take a vote on that since, I move that we vote to amend the orders of conditions to permit Mr. Oliveri.
It was actually the cover letter for the determination of applicability.
Okay,
Yeah.
the cover letter to remove the requirement for a 2-foot clearance under the shed. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, is Mr. Wilson here? Yes, he is.
I almost forgot why I was here.
Come on, don't say that.
Hi, how you doing? Jeff Wilson, 26 Norwell Road, Marshfield. And we came back with some better mapping and a few sections that can be closed. One of them, I see the last name, but that piece of property, that section going through the O'Donnell property is actually washed out as 2 hills. We walked it and we could see exactly where it was. We did an overlay of different mapping. So that section could be closed down because it's pretty washed out. And then there's another section, you can see this section Mike has here, right where he's pointing to, the further section on the bottom. That's where the pictures are from. I didn't take pictures of your property, but it is 2 hills that are pretty washed out. So the trail does not go on any private property. This trail would go from the highest point of Marshfield down to the Bridle Trail, which is, I believe, like right around 43 feet above sea level. And I think it's like 268, right, roughly from the top.
Okay.
And I think it would be a great trail for, for walking, it'd be a good historical trail. There is some structures out there, whether they're from the war, I don't know. We did find like a dump out there, whether it was from that camp or it was, you can actually see like the tire marks out there too. And it's also a great, I think it would be a great to spread out the users too. On a map, it looks so close, but when you physically go out there, actually last night someone told me to this, I didn't go there because I thought it was so small. When they went there, they realized like, wow, it's really spread out on a map. It looks like, but it's not. It is spread out, and there is multi-uses. I go in there frequently. I do trim the trails. I did walk the trail with Mike. Me and Mark Scala had walked this trail, so I did go to conservation. I knew that. So we took care of that part, and I think it would also bring more business, because if you have the mountain bike community is pretty big. 99% of them are pretty respectful. You always have the few, like in anything. But, everyone's pretty respectful, and, they're going to spend money, go eat, get something to drink, find out about the town, maybe even move to the town. I know one person that moved here because he's like, oh, this is a great park. And he's a runner. He does bike too, but he runs more. And part of the reason he moved because of the thing. And he's seen out, and I trim the trails, but I just trim back what's overhanging.
Yep.
I don't need any more work unless it's and then blowdowns, we remove those, anything like that to open it. And, a lot of people and horses walking. I see more young families in there with kids.
That's good.
there's a geo box in there. I don't know if anyone knew that. But there's a geo box in there down by 3A, where
Well-
people put these little things in.
Yeah.
To go visit. So I've seen younger families coming in and more. So it'd be great to spread out the users of the trail a little more trail and then shut down, like, those other sections were probably made by dirt bikes, I would imagine, where they go
Yeah.
straight up and down hills.
Well, I think our
And they watch.
concerns were private property,
Correct.
which is solved, and just, is this an additional use that's going to be too much? But it does not seem to be the case.
Yeah, I don't think so. Someone, when they messaged me, actually it was last night, and she's like, didn't go there, because when I looked on the map, but she goes, it looks small, but it's really not.
It's
It's
big.
really spread out. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's more
it's big.
spread out, and they do a great job. I actually go through there for even the people with the horses from Amesway, the lady that comes out, I forget her name, I talked to her several times. I clear, like, even all those sticks and logs. I stop my bike and I clear stuff all the time. Any like branches that fall and stuff. Back in it was 2020, the storm that came in from the ocean. So it was like the bridle trail side really got a lot of hit, and I think we removed, between that and the watershed, 265 blowdowns.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've removed 265 blowdowns that was all hardwood, all the pines swayed, so it stayed up. It had
Yeah, they-
flex. The two big oaks down on what we call Windmill Trail. I had cut those. Those had to be 140 years old, and they blew down. It was beautiful trees. I was talking to Mike that you should have a wood day out there for all that blowdown wood, so people could, right?
yeah.
It's like, it doesn't look good sitting there, and it could be used, you know what I mean?
That's for sure.
It's like, this is too bad, this is good.
Well,
wood.
I'm good with this. Does Bert, you know this territory much better than I
Yeah,
do.
I'm very good with it.
Are you fine with it?
And I think you know the area well, but after what we've been through tonight, just keep in touch with Mike. If
Oh, yeah.
anything changes,
Oh, no, I always do. I was just walked with Mike Friday, right? We
Yep.
walked Friday to look at some bridges. One area probably needs an NOI, the other one we can do sooner, or the other two we can do soon. But, yeah, I'm always in touch with Mike.
Okay, well, I'm gonna take a vote on this one too, just because it's significant. I move that we approve the trail that Mr. Wilson has delineated for us. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I remember why I was here.
Okay, now on to public hearings. The first being 98 Hartford Road. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, October 2nd, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by Donald Trudeau. And Commissioner Malafronte is the hearing officer.
Mike, have all administrative requirements been met?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Looks like Trudeau's online. Is that correct, Mike?
It does appear.
Would you like to kind of explain your project here?
Sure. So I'm Don Trudeau at 96 Hartford Road. I'm just looking to kind of fence in part of the yard. So my neighbor already has abrevieties over on the left side at 104. And there's some existing fence around that I've kind of done in black there. Basically, I'm just trying to contain my 2-year-old daughter in a part of the yard so we can get outside without worrying about it running into the street. So we're just trying to close in part of the yard there.
Okay. So this property is located within land subject to coastal storm flowage. And the applicant has indicated that he's proposing a 6-inch gap between the fence and the ground to allow for any floodwaters that may impact the property. And the building commissioner has issued comments for the project as well. He said the project has an active floodplain permit. It doesn't require any zoning variances or special permits. And he did recommend a 6-inch off-the-ground open area. Michael, do you have any other comments or?
Yes, I will say that the building commissioner and floodplain coordinator also suggested that fences with small openings and solid fences can divert flow and trap debris and should not be permitted in a flood zone. So I would like to inquire what style fence this would be, if it would be chain link or like a picket fence or kind of like a solid vinyl, white vinyl fence.
Yeah, I was thinking more a wood picket fence.
And how big would the spacing be in between the pickets?
They would be tight, touching.
Touching. Typically, especially with the comments from the floodplain coordinator here, he would recommend that that a solid fence, such as with the pickets touching, or one with small openings between the pickets, could divert flow and trap debris during a flood event.
Gotcha. Is there? I mean, the thing I'm just we're trying to gain some privacy and also contain the 2-year-old, and we do have a lot of existing fence all around that is height. Just how much of a space in between the pickets would be necessary?
Typically an inch with skirting around flood zones. There's an inch. Typically guidance is there would be an inch between boards and then 6 inches off the grade.
Gotcha. I mean, I guess that would work.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments or suggestions on this?
No?
No, I mean, I'm thinking even if you space pickets an inch apart, you're still gonna have the same kind of debris buildup. I mean, to actually have free flowing, you're gonna need pretty big gaps
I mean, that kind of defeats the purpose
of having a fence.
The other thing, I don't know if
little baby.
I'm in flood zone AE. Is it is it coastal storm flowage? I was under the impression it was more. I mean, we've never had any flowing water. I know plenty of the neighbors all have fences that are just all tight together, vinyl fences. I've never seen any debris or anything. And the water, like if you look out of the ocean, is I don't know which way the water would even come from because we have seawall in front of us. If it's coming from, I'm just a lot of the neighbors have fences.
Anybody else have,
So if the minimum standard is 1 inch, Mike, is that what?
Yep.
well, yeah, we're kind of working off of Andrew's comments, which are
He
just,
didn't mention
he
spacing,
doesn't
though.
mention any, he just says fences with small openings and solid fences can divert flow and trap debris.
So you have to define small.
Yeah, and we don't really have a specific definition on.
I know Andrew was on earlier. I don't see. It appears that Andrew is on now. Andrew, would you like to weigh in here?
Nope, not on.
I mean, based on this area.
Hey, Mike, sorry. Mike, can you hear me?
Yes. Would you like to weigh in on 96 Hartford Street? There, the commission has some questions about the spacing in between in between pickets on fences to not make them solid.
Yeah, the comments that I submitted to the Conservation Commission were basically copied right out of the FEMA requirements, the NFIP FEMA requirements for fences. So, you know, in V zones, in AO zones, zones that are within the limit of moderate wave action, you definitely don't want any sort of solid wall fencing happening. In the rest of the other A zones, AE zones, you know, solid wall fencing can happen. They encourage to have flood openings in it, not necessarily required. Should be designed to maybe collapse so that they don't create an obstruction. You know, I don't know how much fence companies do that, but like I said in my comments, at least I think the 6-inch off the ground minimum should be encouraged, and as much open fencing as possible in the flood zone should be encouraged, and solid wall vinyl fencing should be absolutely discouraged in any flood zone. That's pretty much my comments, and those are based off of basically the FEMA NFIP regulations.
So,
I would just add that the lot B, like where 104 is, where that whole line is abrevieties, I mean, that's open, so water could flow in and around there, as well as the backyard of 49, the little black piece in the corner, that's chain link back there, so water could also flow around there. Just so it's not totally boxed in, is all I'm saying, the fence.
So to summarize, Andrews, I think as long as it's a 6-inch and it's been indicated it's going to be some sort of picket, wood picket, we'd be comfortable with that with a 6-inch opening.
Elevation.
Yeah, 6-inch off the
So-
ground.
What about the?
What about
I think it's encouraged, but doesn't sound like it's necessarily required.
Well, it can't be solid, right?
Right.
Right,
So
so-
what we're saying is one enough, is one
Well,
okay.
but I'm in AE, he did mention it was the
think
V
AO
zones and the AO zones, I think.
Corey, is that?
There can't be
I
solid.
think that's what he said as well. I think
Well,
AE, it's discouraged, but
He
not.
said solid fencing should definitely be discouraged
In any flood zone.
in any flood zone.
Yep.
So let's stick with the 1 inch.
1 inch, that's what I would.
Between
go.
pickets and the 6 inches.
6 inches
below.
off the ground and
Yep.
1 inch.
Well, that's just my.
My only thing on that, and I don't want to extend this any longer than it is like, you drive through that area, there's white vinyl fences.
Fences
pretty much every
everywhere.
goddamn property.
You
So
know,
it's like-
I hear you and I hear
Yeah.
Mr. Trudeau, but just because a lot of people have something that currently
Right.
they shouldn't,
That's.
we kinda,
We would not be able to do a job.
we
if
wouldn't
had
have
that
a,
standard.
we wouldn't have
Or
a
anything would
commission.
go,
Yeah. I get it, but,
Okay.
Just tough on everyone, it's kind of discouraging.
Yeah.
Because of privacy.
I totally understand, but, you know, we're facing tough times flood-wise, so we sort of have to toe the line a little bit.
Mike, do you have any conditions on this permit?
Yes. I would suggest the following special conditions on the cover letter. Ensure best management practices are followed before commencing the work, obtain all pertinent permits, and to see the conservation administrator for guidance on conservation permits for work beyond the approved work activities, and also the spacing as mentioned in discussion, so the 6 inches off the ground and then 1 inch between pickets.
Okay. I make a motion to issue a determination of applicability with a +5 and a -2 determination. Can I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Next up, 29 Salt Meadow Way. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, October 2nd, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by Alexander Hagan, and the hearing officer is Commissioner Miles.
Okay. Is Mr. Hagan on Zoom? I think I see his name there. Is he on Zoom? Can you see?
I do
He
see
is.
Alex Hagan on Zoom. Alex Hagan, would you like to speak about your project?
Well, first, have all administrative requirements have been?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Okay, so Mr. Hagan wants to fill in a pool in buffer zone to BVW? Is that correct?
I'm not sure he's on or he can hear us. I can give a brief background on this property if you'd like me to.
Oh, here he comes.
Oh, hi, sorry, I couldn't get it unmuted.
Okay.
Can you?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Did you want to just explain your project?
Yeah, so I just want to fill this pool in my backyard. The liner is all torn and it's damaged. We bought this house in May, and it actually had to it just went through conservation for apparently, like when they built the pool 40 years ago, it never got its final sign off. So in order for us to close on the house, it had to go back through conservation to make sure it was in the right location. But it's inoperable, and we have a 3-month-old now, and so we just would rather have the backyard and not this giant ugly hole.
Understood. So the building commissioner commented that when you do fill in the pool, the debris needs to be removed, not just buried in the hole.
Correct, yeah. We'll be removing that. The debris that's outside of the pool was just to make room for the truck that would be filling it.
Okay. And the patio, the concrete around the pool as well?
Correct.
Okay. And then do you plan on putting something over the hole once you fill it in?
It's gonna be grass.
Okay. So it'll remain pervious?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments?
Nope. Straightforward.
Mike, do you have some conditions you?
Yeah, I would suggest the following on the cover letter. Ensure best management practices are followed before commencing work, obtain all pertinent permits, and to see the conservation administrator or agent for guidance on conservation permits for work beyond the approved work activities, and also clean fill is to be used.
Okay. That all sounds good to me. I'd move to close the hearing and issue a determination of applicability with +5 and -3. Can I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you're all set, Mr. Hagan.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, 124 Bay Ave. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed for 124 Bay Ave. And the hearing officer is Commissioner Lake.
Mike, have all the administrative requirements been met?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Can you state your name and describe
My
the
name's
project?
Richie Oland. I own Oland Landscape in town.
Okay, can you give us a description of what you plan to do?
So basically, we're ripping out all the asphalt that's there and replacing with a paver driveway.
Okay. Is it the right portion, the driveway that's on the right?
We're getting the permitting done now for for the entire job, but we'll probably do half of it and then another half
Okay,
the following season, just due to finances.
okay.
Figured we'd get it all done at once, though.
And what is it being, what's being replaced with?
Pavers,
Okay.
concrete pavers.
Are you planning on using some sort of pervious paver?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, Mike's given me the sand and everything that we need to use.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. Mike, do you have any comments on this project?
Yes, we've been working together on this project for a month or two now, actually.
Yep.
And I have provided the pervious paver schematics. So either the schematics that describe either a concrete paver could be applicable with adequate spacing and pervious materials between pavers and under pavers to allow for the flow of water, and also a pervious paver option for the pervious pavers themselves. And this property is in buffer zone to coastal beach. It's also in a barrier beach and land subject to coastal storm flowage, AE11. All of the hardscaping on the property is essentially proposed to be replaced. There's a side driveway here, a driveway that leads to a basement garage, a stone patio in the front, a brick patio in the front, and then a larger driveway to the right of the home. All of that would be replaced with pervious paving.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments or questions? Is there anyone from the public that has any comment or questions? Mike, did you have special conditions for this?
Yes, I would suggest the following. Ensure best management practices are followed. Before commencing the work, obtain all pertinent permits, and to see the conservation administrator or agent for guidance on conservation permits for work beyond the approved work activities.
Okay. I'm going to move to close the hearing and issue a determination of applicability with +5 and a -2. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, 12 McCarthy Road. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, October 2nd, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by Brian Smith. Is Mr. Smith, I see Mr. Smith on?
Yes.
Are administrative requirements satisfied, Mike?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Can you describe the situation here, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, so I got contacted to clear some thorns and poison ivy in the backyard of 12 McCarthy. And I found out that it was in conservation land, so then Mike showed up and we stopped, and then now we're here. So I'm clearing. She used to have grass back there, and she let it grow in for the past 10 years. So we are trying to just reclaim that area, get rid of that brush, and then just get some grass growing back in that area.
Okay, Mike?
Yes, so I got a call from a neighbor in the area about some brush clearing going on, unpermitted vegetation alteration within buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. Went out on site, met Mr. Smith, informed him that I'd be putting a stop work order on the property. I returned to the site approximately half an hour later, delivered the stop work order to the homeowner, and it was indicated that Mr. Smith would be working on a planting plan to mitigate for the cutting over there in the buffer zone. This would be the mitigation plan as proposed by Mr. Smith. He is proposing to establish 8 high bush blueberries around the back corner of the lot, as you can see on the screen here. It's also proposed, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Brian, that the area between these bushes would be maintained along, and also any overhanging vegetation would be maintained along this highlighted area. So the high bush blueberries would be essentially in this area. Any nuisance, invasive, opportunistic plants that would grow over would be trimmed.
Yeah, pretty much. She asked that long stretch from the street to the backyard just be trimmed from the. You can see it's just all trees there. The overhanging into the lawn just be kind of maintained, and then yeah, right around the bushes there just be maintained probably twice a year, I would assume.
Question, Mike?
Yes.
Where is the resource area?
The resource area is on this parcel here. This is a parcel that contains many wet. I can pull up a schematic, but the wetlands are located to the north of this home in this wooded area.
So this is a buffer zone.
Yes, buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands.
How big would you, the area in the back, I mean, I looked at it, I went and I spoke with Mrs. Hazard. The area of clearing, do you have any estimation for how big that is?
I can pull up some GIS tools to get a good estimate on it right now.
I'm just wondering if 8 blueberry, high bush blueberry is
Right.
adequate.
There was a lot of vegetation cleared in that area. I do have some satellite imagery here of the clearing. So this is in July 11th of last year, 2023. As you can see here, the backyard is fairly vegetated. Just 20-30 feet off the back deck is where the vegetation starts. It's pretty dense. And then when you look down here, you can see essentially to the lot line back there would be cleared, as well as this area underneath the tree canopy. So it would be essentially this area, which I can try to get a good area of through a GIS tool right now.
I wouldn't be going all the way back to that lot line. I'd probably be 15 feet up towards the house. The backyard slopes down into some kind of wet, marshy area, so we wouldn't go all the way back to that line. If I had to estimate, I would say 35 by 35 area.
Because I was out there and it didn't look like they'd gone.
Yeah, we didn't go, we probably stayed 15, 20 feet off of that line in the back.
And did you take any trees down back there, or was it mostly just, I know there was a lot of poison ivy and...
It was no trees taken out. It was just, I'd probably say 2 inch or under. There was some, small, I guess you could call them trees, maybe 6 feet tall that started growing up, but mostly just thorns and briars.
Okay. And on the side of the house, as you're facing the house on the right side where it runs right along the resource area, I know you cut back a bit. I'm looking at one of the photos we have here, and that's a really straight line right down the property line. Did you clear anything beyond that into that?
I didn't clear anything from where the street up to the house. I didn't touch that at all. I touched from the house towards the backyard.
Yeah.
Exactly on that line, it's not laid out, so I don't know exactly where that line is. But it's mostly just pruning the overgrowth and not, ripping it out.
So, okay, the first thing we're gonna need here are conservation markers along the right side of the property line. And you are proposing 8 high bush blueberries?
Yeah, when I met with Mike, he gave me kind of a list of some options, and I felt since I was only ripping out, kind of thorns and poison ivy, and not taking out bushes or trees, that 8 that corner already.
Okay, I would ask you to maybe throw in a couple of winter berries. So maybe a total of 10 plants back there.
Okay.
Other commissioner comments? I also want to point out to Mike, the resource area is being used for green waste. People down the road are dumping, right?
Right.
You'll see it. So we need some signage there also.
We can get some signage up
Yeah.
there.
Any comment from the public? Hearing none, I move to close with the conditions of 8 high bush blueberries, 2 winterberry, and conservation markers. How many?
I would suggest potentially 6, 4 along the side of the property. Let me change my screen here. I'm looking at a different screen than the commission. Oop. So 4 along this boundary, maybe 1 here, 1 at the end of the house, 1 off the back deck, 1 here, and then 1 here and 1 here. So kind of along the long way, and then on each corner of this lake here.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Thank you. 267 Ridge Road, in compliance with regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. A public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, October 2nd, to consider the notice of intent filed for 267 Ridge Road. Hello, Rick. The hearing officer is Commissioner O'Donnell.
Michael, how we set with,
Yes,
taxes
all
in-
administrative requirements have been met.
okay. All right, Rick, take it away.
Yeah, so we just have a septic upgrade and repair here on the property. Property at Ridge Road, you probably know the area, the whole area is in a flood zone. And this one backs up to kind of the tidal flat and salt marsh out on the east side of the property. So currently there's an existing cesspool in the rear yard that's between the house and the wall that's out there at the edge of the marsh. That'll be abandoned in accordance with Title V, and the new system is proposed between the street and the house. We moved it as far away from the resources we could, kind of shoehorned it in the
Yeah,
front
it's a tight-
yard there as best as possible. We required local upgrades and approvals from the Board of Health to put it in that position. But that's pretty much what we're here. We're gonna abandon the one out back properly and a new system out front between the house and the street. So there won't be any change in grade. We're gonna be removing it, excavating to put the new system in and going back in, and it's not gonna be a mounded system or anything like that. So that's pretty much what we're
Yeah.
gonna do, just to upgrade, so property's being sold
Okay.
and the system failed.
Yeah, I was out there the other day, and, yeah, it is an old cesspool system, on the other side of the house, closer to the resource area, so, and this is really shoehorned in there. It's gonna, this is like right up against the road, like a foot or two away from the edge of the road.
Yeah.
But, you know, obviously, it's a big improvement. The cesspool is about 25 feet from the buffer zone. This is gonna be about 75 feet from the buffer zone, again, on the other side of the house. Board of Health has raised no concerns, so there's no comments there. Andrew's comment was that has not submitted a floodplain permit for the
That
property?
actually happened today.
Okay.
I know it's last minute, but it was done today, but I know that should have been in place.
Okay.
Project was done.
So that was the only note that I have. Any commissioners have any questions? Anybody from the public have any questions? All right, Michael, any special conditions?
Yeah, I would suggest the following special conditions, our standard general conditions, 1 through 18. Prior to construction, condition 5 and 2, to have a pre-construction meeting and ensure the site is staked out properly. During construction, condition 11, ensure best management practices are followed. After construction, condition 1, apply for a certificate of compliance. And I would suggest erosion control is used in this area and also in place throughout the duration of work.
Okay. All right, if there's no other further questions or comments, I'd like to close the hearing and issue orders of condition. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
It was a long night for quick.
Interesting night.
That's how it goes. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll see
Thank you. 0 Main Street. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, October 2nd, to consider the notice of intent filed by Robert Celeberti, and the hearing officer is Vice Chair O'Donnell.
Thank you. Mike, can you confirm all the administrative requirements in that?
All administrative requirements have been met.
Okay, I see Mr. Morse. Greg, 3 of the commissioners are new since this has been in front of us before. So please take that into consideration with your presentation and bring us up to date.
Great, thank you. For the record, my name's Gregory Morse. I'm a registered engineer with Morse Engineering. I'm representing the applicant for this project, Celeberti Realty LLC. This is a notice of intent we filed associated with a new 10-lot subdivision located at 0 Main Street. I want to be clear with this notice of intent. This is for the subdivision road, the infrastructure for the road, the drainage associated with the road. There will be 10 house lots off of the road. Some of those lots will require separate NOIs at a future date when we know what the exact building is. So this is really the roadway and the roadway infrastructure for the subdivision. A portion of the roadway does cross a wetland, but looking at the existing conditions that are out here, the existing site, it's made up of 2 assessors' parcels, parcel D180201 and D180202. It's a total of 18.82 acres in size. It's previously undeveloped. It's entirely woodland area. There are on-site wetlands as well as some off-site wetlands which have buffer zones onto the site. You'll see on the screen here the cover page of the subdivision plan set, which I'm going to hold up to because you can see in blue, I've highlighted the wetland resource areas on the subdivision plan. For reference, Main Street, Route 3A is at the right side of the page. This is the new subdivision road coming in. Out front here, this here, the blue represents a bordering vegetated wetland. Internal of that bordering vegetated wetland, right here, there's an intermittent stream which flows in a northerly direction, okay? So we're crossing that BVW and we're crossing that stream. Interior of the site, there is an isolated wetland here, jurisdictional under the local bylaw. It does not meet the state's requirements, but it meets Marshfield's requirements. And then off-site, to the south in the back and off-site to the west in the back are two BVWs again that do have buffers that extend onto the site, okay? So there were no certified vernal pools on the property, there were no FEMA floodplains, there were no endangered species habitat mapped on the site. All of the plans in the plan set depict the 100-foot buffer zone, and then the setbacks that will apply on this are a 75-foot no structure zone and a 50-foot no disturbance zone per the local bylaw. The topography at the land, generally, if you're looking at the cover page there, on the right-hand side at Route 3A Main Street, the elevation is about 117. As you would expect, the topography dips down into that wetland where we're crossing the wetland. The topography is approximately at elevation 95. And then we start going back uphill again to the back of the site. The back of the site is at elevation 114, approximately the same as Route 3A. We're bordered around the site generally by undeveloped woodland, except along Route 3A, our immediate abutter to the north and the immediate abutter to the south are developed single-family homes. But out back, the majority of the land that we abut is undeveloped woodland. Soils at the site, NRCS soils mapping lists it as Situate and Montauk series, which are classified as a hydraulic soil group C, being well drained. Over the last 2 weeks, we did conduct soils testing with the Board of Health on site. We dug over 40 test pits and perk tests and got passing perk tests on all of the lots and the drainage areas proposed with the project. And that brings me to kind of where the proposal is. So it's a new 10-lot residential single-family home. The roadway itself, it's 1,439 linear feet. It terminates at a cul-de-sac. The roadway itself, it's 20 foot wide of pavement. It has a 12-inch Cape Cod berm on each side. It has a 5-foot sidewalk on one side. Underneath the road would be utilities, a water main, a storm drainage system, and subsurface electric. On page 14 of the plan set, there's a cross-section which documents how the road gets built, the gravel, the pavement specifications, and where those utilities are underneath the roadway. The drainage on the site is generally captured within the roadway. It's captured within catch basins. It's directed to particle separators or storm scepter systems, and then it's directed to an infiltration basin. I'm going to hold up my plan again here. The way that the site has been graded, we generally collect all of the drainage and we discharge it into a stormwater basin that's located right here. That stormwater basin then overtops at the property line at that location for discharges. We submitted with the notice of intent a full set of drainage calculations. Those drainage calculations outline the 10 standards of the DEP stormwater management policy and how the project complies with those 10 standards. That stormwater report is being reviewed. We are concurrently in front of the planning board. We'll be in front of the planning board Monday night for their first meeting. At the conclusion of tonight's meeting, I expect we'll be asking for a continuance, probably of 4 to 6 weeks range, so that we can continue with the planning board process. The planning board has hired a peer review engineer to go through the drainage calculations and to go through the plans with respect to their regulations. The majority of the work for the roadway is outside the 100-foot buffer zone, with the exception of 2 locations. Location number 1 is the easier location, I'll call it, and that is right here from Station 9 to Station 1100 on the road. You'll see that the road is within the 100-foot buffer zone at that location. You'll see that the road is outside of the 75-foot buffer setback, and all of the grading associated with the road, adjacent to the road, complies with the 50-foot setback at that location. The second location is right here. This is obviously the more involved one. This is where we have a crossing of the wetland itself and a crossing of the intermittent stream. This project was filed under the provisions of what we call a limited access project. The wetland regulations are pretty clear that an applicant that has substantial upland area on the opposite side of a wetland can cross that wetland to access that when certain conditions are met. We believe we meet the conditions as a limited access project, as it's a new road. Typically, what we try to do is we try to avoid and minimize wetland impacts when that's the case. You'll notice that we're crossing at the location where the BVW is at its minimum width. That was specifically chosen so that we were altering the smallest amount of area possible. The BVW at that location is approximately 12 feet wide. The proposal results in 1,474 square feet of wetland alteration at that crossing. We're replicating it at a 2.4 to 1 ratio. We've proposed 3,463 square feet of replication. In Appendix C of our notice of intent is a copy of the planting plan of the plants that would be used in that replication area. They're essentially all native plants that you would find elsewhere on the site. Where that wetland crossing is a stream crossing for an intermittent stream. An intermittent stream is a stream that dries up for periods of time. It's not a river. It does not flow year-round. But what we've proposed there is a 20-foot wide precast box culvert. There are stream crossing standards that the DEP has. We believe we comply with them. That box culvert was sized for the 500-year storm event to pass through it. It also provides 2 feet of freeboard for passage of animals under the culvert as well, with it flowing at full capacity. Off of the culvert on either side, we have retaining walls that extend to the 50-foot buffer zone, so that way grading inside the 50-foot buffer zone at that crossing is minimized. We included in our notice of intent in the stormwater report a construction phase operation and maintenance plan documenting how construction will be monitored and erosion controls will be in place. We included in our plan set on the screen on pages 12 and 13 a detailed erosion control plan with mitigating measures for the roadway, including a stabilized construction entrance at the entrance, mulch socks around the limits of work, specific soil stockpiling areas outside the 100-foot buffer zone, and material staging areas. DEP has issued a file number. I noticed it's not on the agenda, but they have issued a file number. I didn't see any technical comments from them yet. But that's my quick synopsis. I can get into details of any of that or entertain questions, but again, I do expect I'm going to be asking for either a 4 or 6 week continuance at the conclusion of this meeting. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Mike, your comments?
Yes. So there were 2 site visits conducted, one on 9/30, September 30th, with 3 of the commissioners, and another one on October 1st with 3 of the commissioners, during which it was noted, let me pull up these slides here. So there was, this area was spotted near flag B102B. As you can see, there's sitting water in there. The area looks very wet. It could have potential to be an uncertified vernal pool.
Which flag was that? Sorry.
That was one of the reflagged flags. So that was B102B in the B series wetland. And then also on the October 1st site visit, it was noticed in the area around test pit 304, and then also around test pit 307 and 306. There appeared to be a thick, dark horizon on the surface, as well as buttress tree roots, root systems shallow to the ground. possible indicators of a wetland there. We also noticed where the test pits were dug, that there were some iron-containing histosols on the surface from digging. See here, I would also like to mention a sizable amount of fill is proposed to be brought in with some grading for the road and the individual lots. That level of fill will need approval through the select board, I believe. And Pat Brennan, through the planning department, is responsible for reviewing the stormwater report and has reviewed the definitive subdivision plans, which are holding the 17 sheets, the stormwater report and calculations, and a waiver request letter.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So all of us have visited the site, Greg, 6 of us since the construction path was put in, and so it's made it a lot more accessible. So we've had a chance to move around and actually be able to get our bearings on what's where. Mike mentioned those 2 concerns that we noticed, but I'd like to have any of the other commissioners who would like to weigh in on what.
Could you speak up, please?
I'll try.
Could you speak up?
Oh, your microphone is off to the side.
How's that? You hear me any better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, what I said is, all of the commissioners have visited the site. 6 of us within the last, since the construction pathway's been put in. So I'd like to have a little discussion among the commissioners about what was seen, since we didn't talk about it in the field too much.
May I go first?
Go ahead.
I was out there with Corey and Craig. I would just like to kind of reiterate Mike's concern. It was most evident on the excavation path. This picture doesn't really depict it well, but it's right to the right of this picture. It was the excavation path from the test pit 302 area to the 306 area, kind of between lots 3 and 4. That was the area that I had the most concerns with, and the vegetation was very similar to the vegetation of the isolated wetland. Obviously, we didn't do any soil probing or anything like that, but the vegetation was very similar. And I think that's an area that the commission should request for further evaluation. Obviously, it was kind of inaccessible prior to that excavation construction path, or accessible, but with a machete maybe. But it's that area I had the most concerns with. Besides that, I think lots, as you get towards the rear of the site, it seems very developable. And then I did have a couple other comments on the culvert. I would prefer it to be open bottom rather than a box culvert, like a three-sided precast. And then I was trying to figure out kind of the clearance. I think it might have been in the actual NOI appendices, but the clearance, is it 4 feet clearance from the?
From the stream bed, it is.
It is, okay.
I believe it is.
Yeah, that was the only thing, and the openness ratio looks fine, which I assume Pat Brennan is looking through that as well. But 20 feet width for that size stream, I think, is plenty sufficient. Definitely satisfies the stream standards. That's it for me, I think, right? I mean, I'd prefer to see micrograding on the wetland replication area, because, I mean, based on the topo of the existing conditions, I just want to make sure you can get hydric soils to the entire area of replication, because it looks like there'd be a cut of a couple feet in some areas, but besides that,
I agree with you on that culvert. I just assumed it was gonna be open on the bottom. Is that,
I think it's proposed as a box culvert.
We had it as a box culvert, but it gets filled up on the inside, so it's a gravel bottom, it's not a concrete bottom.
Yeah.
So it's embedded into the
I'd
ground.
prefer just two footings, three-sided culvert, whether that's an arch or a recast. There's various applications that.
Yeah, I can look at that option.
Yeah. And then I did read through the engineers, the peer review from the planning board. I did have concerns regarding the stone bottom of the infiltration basin. I know that's just outside of our area, but I did want to voice that. And I would assume, or the other comment I had regarding the infiltration basin, I just noticed in your stormwater report, you had a drawdown calculation, and it looked like you utilized A soils for the infiltration rate. I don't know if any infiltration tests were done in the area of the infiltration basin, but if it was, if you used an infiltration rate consistent with C or D soils, it'd be a little bit misleading on that calculation.
Yeah, I expect those calculations will change because that was prepared prior to doing the soil testing, just due to a contract timing requirement.
Yeah.
We're going to be discussing in further the bottom of the detention basin. It certainly is in your purview to comment on whether it's crushed stone or grass on the bottom of that.
I think with the soils, I think grass would probably grow well, to be honest. But obviously, it's up to you guys and the reviewing agent on that one, or the reviewing
Understood.
engineer.
I would also, on a separate point, just like to read into the record that this was submitted over 21 days ago. However, on September 10th, we have email confirmation from Mr. Celebrity that he agrees to waive the 21-day timeline to October 2nd. And that's via writing and email.
other commissioners, comments?
I had some comments on the street trees
Yes.
on the landscaping plan, sheet 10 of 17. I would strongly object to Bradford pears being used for street trees. They're not
They just
native.
went on the invasive list in Massachusetts, and they are no longer permitted to be sold here.
I spect those because that's what the planning board asked for on Wright's Way.
Oh my God,
When I go to the
really?
planning board, I will update them, and I've made a note of it. Thank you.
As well as the London plane tree. Just try to stick to things that are native and found in the surrounding woodlands. Obviously, that black gum is pretty common throughout. Any of the oaks.
Okay.
But black gum has really beautiful fall foliage, so it's a nice ornamental. But use that instead of the Bradford pears.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, to stay on the same stream there with Corey, the London plane trees, there is an American version, Platanus occidentalis, but it's a really bad street tree because the bark peels, it's messy. They're beautiful trees, but as street trees, I'm not sure the residents are gonna be keen on that. Just a thought. It's a long way away, but yeah, but I would agree to try it with a more native.
Yeah, look for trees that are commonly occurring just on the site
Sure.
and use
thank you.
those.
So I'm sorry, Bert, go ahead.
Go ahead, you have something.
I was just gonna say, I think Sam, Corey, Mike and I were out there, and then Mike, you were there with Bert and John and Liz. I think our takeaway when we were there yesterday is that we would like a a second look at that area, is it between 3 and 4?
Yes.
Where we had some concerns about how the soil looked after the road had gone in there. And did we have 2? We had,
And then there was the area by flag B to
Right.
2B.
I would personally want to see both those areas revisited by a wetland delineator.
I'd agree. I'd support
So is the same delineator still engaged with you?
We haven't used her essentially since we went through the ORAD process. I can reach out to her, or I can ask my client if there's someone else he'd rather use and have them go out and prepare a narrative and give you some soil samples. And if you feel necessary on having that peer reviewed, so be it.
Because one of the points of confusion before is, it was mentioned that she had not walked the whole site, that she had not looked at everything. And that's when we reached the impasse on the whole peer review. We wanted the whole site looked at. Now that we have more clearing done and we can find our way around, we specifically want to look at those areas just mentioned, but what else?
I think those are the areas of greatest concern. You know, I think when you get into the back here, and that's not so problematic, but those two really sort of jumped out as being worth a second look.
And I think with the discussion, I think if we can narrow the specific areas we want relooked, it would be beneficial on both sides rather than redelineate the whole property from a financial and timing standpoint.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear from you both.
That's what
Yeah, I
I'm
agree
more
with,
comfortable with those areas and honing in on that.
Yes, I agree with that.
I agree with that.
yeah. I didn't really see areas of concern when you get back into the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, that looks good.
You know, that's, but those two spots, we'd like to get another look at. Have a
Sure,
delineator, have another crack at.
sure.
Yes, just one more thing. I was just wondering why so much fill was gonna be brought in to raise the grades,
Yeah.
because it's kind of flat.
Well, there's a couple of driving factors to that. First is we have to get the drainage to get into our detention basin, and ultimately have room to discharge that into something. And so with the first portion of the road coming down from Route 3A to the wetland, we didn't feel that we had a large enough area to fit a detention basin in there. So that at the crossing, basically from the crossing up to the cul-de-sac, all of that water is going to the stormwater basin. At the crossing, it's essentially a small high point on the street, and we pitch the land back toward 3A from the crossing slightly. And there is a small drainage swale along the north side of the street between 3A and the wetland system. You could see it on the grading and drainage plan, sheet 6 would show it. So, part of that answer is to get the drainage to get to that singular detention basin. As you go back to that cul-de-sac, you're up high in elevation. And so it made sense to put the detention basin kind of at the lowest point at the site, adjacent to the wetlands, which we would ultimately be discharging from the detention basin into. Secondly, the soil testing on the site, groundwater, I would say is between 2 and 4 feet below the ground surface on all the test pits that we did. These will all be on septic systems, okay? So from groundwater to finished ground surface on a septic system, you're talking 6 to 7 feet is what you need. And so that required, fill on essentially the front yards of the houses. And so we brought the road grade up to match the front yards on the houses as well.
Okay. And all of that would drain to the stormwater basin and not to none of it would drain to the south?
Correct. We made it so that pretty much all the houses, all of the driveways, all of the road infrastructure drains to the drainage system. Some of the backyards on the individual lots will drain to the back of those lots, but none of the hard surfaced infrastructure does.
Yep.
Was your point, Corey, that we wanted to make sure that we're not losing flow to those other wetlands in the back?
That and the addition of fill, I didn't want it to channel water onto somebody else's property.
To Corey's point, I would, and I imagine the reviewing engineer might comment this, but I would be more interested in seeing the level spreader for the basin be directed towards the intermittent stream rather than the adjoining property. Almost flip-flop the spillway and the primary discharge or outlet control structure. It doesn't look like the 100-year reaches the spillway anyway.
Yeah, the spillway is an emergency spillway. But the level spreader, yeah, we had it parallel, I think, with the lot line. I don't think there's any reason why it couldn't be rotated 90 degrees and brought down, like you said, to where the emergency spillway
Just
is.
any discharge would be directed to the stream rather than
Yep.
the adjoining lot. Not that, I'm sure the peak flows are fine, but.
So that's everything from commissioners. At this point, I'd like to open it up to the public. Has anybody got any questions or comments? Yes, sir?
Yes. Yeah, I'm Dave Harrell at 72 Highland Street. I'd just like to get a map, because the project abuts my property, going towards Highland Street, going down Route 3A. And I'd just like to have a copy of the map and, just to see if there's any abutments going onto the Harlow Family Trust property.
Sure. Had it been requested prior today, I would have given you a copy. I'll give you this copy as soon as I'm done tonight.
That'll be fine. I see. Yeah, see, this is it right here.
Yes.
Edward Harlow. Okay, so this is the project and the,
So this is your property here.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So it doesn't, okay.
One of these sheets, sheet 7, this shows your property here, and shows, where the houses are. You can measure setbacks, you can measure the road. See,
All right. You done with it this evening?
these are yours.
Thank you.
Greg, what's the distance for private wells that you need to show?
So Marshfield has a 200-foot setback for a private well to a septic system.
Okay, because that, the Mere property there, I believe that has a private well. I think it's probably okay.
Okay. Yeah, one of the outstanding issues with the planning board is connection to the water main. There is a water main out front on 3A. It's questionable on whether it's going to service this property or not. So we may be looking at doing individual wells. We don't have a solid answer on that at this point in time. We are showing it with a connection, but the water pressure might not be there.
Okay, so you've got our input to this point. When do you want to continue to?
Could we continue to the first meeting in November?
We have two more people who would like to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi,
Identify yourself, please.
Ed Harlow. I grew up at 72 Highland Street. David Harlow, who you just spoke to, is my brother. And
You represent the Harlow Trust, too.
yes.
Your name is on it.
I had a couple of questions for the commission. I just wanted, I'm new to this, so I don't know all the rules and what is required for you to do your jobs properly, but does the Conservation Commission have a feeling about this development versus preserving the wetlands, or is it strictly a matter of law? Like if a builder meets the requirements, then the development must be allowed? I'm just wondering, like, do you all have a disposition about preserving the wetlands versus allowing a development such as this to go through the wetlands?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we do, but the Wetland Protection Act has specific regulations that allow owners and developers to access upland areas of lots that are bisected by wetland or streams, and that's what Mr. Morse referenced. It's a limited access project, which this is filed under. So it is a permittable crossing and wetland impact area through the state regulations.
Thank you.
And to follow up on that, the part of the wetland that is impacted would be replicated on a 2-to-1. So no wetland is being, or any wetland that's being disturbed is being replaced at 2-to-1, 2.4 to 1 in this case.
I'm wondering, what kind of mosquito mitigation would be necessary? That area is really wet back there. I grew up going through those woods all the time, and there are some upland areas, but we used to go ice skating basically back there. It's super wet. Like, how do homeowners keep safe in a place like that? If you have a house surrounded by basically woods and mosquitoes, like, do you have to spray like a lot to do that? And does that harm other species other than the mosquitoes?
I'm not sure that's something within our area.
That's beyond our purview, I think.
Okay, like the Marshfield sprays for mosquitoes, so they can spray in there as well. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I think the spray is on an as-requested basis, so if somebody requests it, they'll get it.
Okay, all right.
You can exclude yourself specifically also.
Okay, yeah. And just wondering, like, seeing as it's so wet back there, I was wondering, like, we had this historically dry weather, like mid-August to mid-September, and if the test holes were dug then, you're gonna get a pretty good test reading considering the dry weather where, I was just surprised you got any good perks in there at all, but I know some areas, you didn't in the high areas. Is that just part of perking? Like if you have a dry spell, you get the luck of that good fortune of the weather, and that's not considered in the long term where it's historically wet?
Well, we're less concerned with the perks than the wetland delineation, identifying the wetland areas. And
Okay.
that was done previously, before this last recent drought. And we're still continuing to look at that a little more.
So they passed during the drought or before that?
It's in the spring, right?
Well, the perk hole, are you talking about the perk holes now?
Yes, sir.
That's, I mean, Greg can address that if he wants, but that's more the Board of Health than us.
Could he address that? Is that something he could answer?
Go ahead, Greg.
Certainly. The perk tests were just done over the last 2 weeks. They were done with the Board of Health agent on site witnessing all the perk tests. Usually on a subdivision site like this, I would go out and one of the first things I would do was soil testing. This one here had a lot of complications before we could do the soil testing. Mainly, we had to have the wetlands delineated and reviewed previously. We had to file a notice of intent to cross the wetlands to get to the upland portion. So we didn't get to do test pits. I would have liked to have done them last summer. But the time when everything was approved was just about a month ago. The first available appointment with the Board of Health was within the last 2 weeks, and we took it. Yeah, it is a dry season right now, or has been for the last month. That's just luck of the draw. But they were done in accordance with the state standards with the Board of Health on site.
Okay, yeah, got it. So it was done in the dry season, that's just the way it went with the calendar and availability. Okay. It's, my last, just a comment, this is really close to the Audubon. Is it known what effect this project would have on the area wildlife, seeing that it's, you know, the protected area close by, that the wildlife that uses that area, like how that would be affected in this project?
Anybody want to take a stab at that?
It's not mapped. Is it mapped?
There's no,
There's
and
no
there's
natural
no
heritage
natural
endangered
heritage
species
endangered
land.
species mapping here. Wildlife in general, I mean, clearly, there's a lot of wildlife in there, a lot of deer,
Snakes?
snakes, we saw that.
It's like coyote footprints.
track.
I guess to go back to your original question about how we can permit this is, we have rules and regulations that have been put together over the years, and that's what the standards that have to be met to build a development. So that's what we're working out now between us and the planning board, whether or not the property owners can meet that requirement.
Okay. Thank you.
And was another person that wanted to comment?
Yes, I'm Catherine Harlow, and I am part of the family. As Ed said, constantly traversing this property all the way down to the next street to get to Riverside Circle, where a friend of mine lived. And as children, we were down there all the time, sliding around on the ice where in the winter, when it froze, in certain circumstances, there would be pools you could slide on. It was just so wet all the time. The other thing, I have a question. When you say going to replicate wetland, are you going to dig up an upland to create wetland, or how does that work, and where would that be?
Actually, your brother is going to get the drawing, and it'd be right adjacent to where they're going to have the crossing, where the...
Over on 3A?
From 3A into the property. When you see the plan, it'll be obvious to you.
All right, and that, they dig up upland to create the wetland? Or how is it done?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm sorry if that was a poor answer, but yes, that's what they do.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we're looking forward to the next round of meetings on this. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can look at the plan with your brother and get a better understanding of what we're talking about. Thank you.
I'm just against it, but that's because the idea of all that woods back there for Marshfield is much more positive than another bunch of, 10 houses that rich people live in. But that's the end of my comment.
Thank you. I guess that's it for comments. I'd like to make a motion to continue until, I'm sorry, Greg, did we? December
First meeting of November?
November 6th.
November 6th. Continued to November 6th. Have I got a second?
But before the second, are we going to request the redelineation of those areas, and is that?
Yeah, we'll have our wetland scientist, whether it's Michelle or whether we engage someone else, we'll have someone put together a report and submit it.
Okay. Yeah, that
You
works.
can review that.
I just wanted to make sure that was.
Yeah,
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So, we have two continuations. I'm going to take Town of Marshfield DPW. That is being continued. They're gonna break that project apart, I believe. So
Yes.
we're waiting for DPW's review of that. So I'll just move that we continue that to, what is our next meeting?
The 16th?
October 16th. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And 12 Careswell Street. Now, this has been on our agenda since June 20th. Bert is the hearing officer, but we have no NOI. The NOI was inadequate as filed and was returned to the applicant. The check that came with the NOI is now stale dated. We still have not seen the NOI come back. So those of you who are new are unfamiliar with this, but in our policies and procedures manual, we have a mechanism that is, we call the DWAP, deny without prejudice. And if someone continues for 3 meetings and fails to satisfy our requirements to hear them properly, we can deny it without prejudice, meaning they can turn around and refile tomorrow. Typically, there would be a 2-year period if you were denied. So, in my opinion, this needs to be denied without prejudice. There is a whole lot that has to take place before we can hear this, including a dock walk, which is not scheduled. I've spoken with the harbor master. We don't have an NOI. We don't have anything. And this has been on the agenda for 6 meetings. So, in my opinion, and if somebody objects, that's fine, say so. I think this should be denied without prejudice.
I would agree, based on, I didn't realize that the check hadn't been cashed, so there's no money involved yet.
There's no money involved. The only thing that Mr. Bono would have to do would be to re-notify the abutters. And they are actively involved anyway, so it wouldn't be any surprise to them. So I think it's still gonna take a while to get this to a point where it makes sense for us to hear it.
Great.
So, do you wanna
You
make the
made it.
motion? Or you want?
I make the motion to deny without prejudice.
And I will second that.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, requests for certificates of compliance. Okay. First up is Chestnut Hill Trust, 684 Holly Road. A partial COC was issued in 2004.
Chair Hanna?
Yeah.
I would like to, if you want some background on this one. So a partial certificate of compliance was issued in 2014. Due to what appears to be an error at the time, the partial certificate of compliance was never signed by the commission. So a new partial will need to be issued and signed by the commission. All work has been completed as proposed.
Okay, so I move to issue a partial certificate of compliance for SE 1318. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Cronin, 22 Winston Road, vegetation management is completed and conservation markers are in place. I move to issue a COC to SE 422946. A second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 35 Falcon Close, SE 42, 2897. The pool was completed as proposed and conservation markers are in. The fence is also installed according to plan, so I move to issue a COC for SE 42, 2897. Second, please.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 162 Bay Avenue, still incomplete. I move to continue to October 16th. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 25 Carolyn Circle, also no change, correct, Mike?
That's correct.
I move to continue to October 16th. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And 38 Hunter Drive, no change there. I move to continue to October 16th. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And that concludes our business. I move to close the Conservation Commission hearing for Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.